And welcome. I'm Mauro Taglieri, a founder and past chair of the IEEE USA Entrepreneur Activities Committee. Today's webinar, How the SBA IEEE USA Partnership Help Engineering Entrepreneurs, is part of the strategic alliance the SBA and IEEE USA signed last June 2009 to help the IEEE USA members and also provide the SBA with feedback from the technical community. The speaker today is Penny Pickett, Senior Advisor to the Administrator and Associate Administrator for Entrepreneurial Development. Penny Pickett is previously served as President and member of the Board of Directors for the Washington, D.C. Technology Council, a member-driven organization assisting with strengthening the business environment for the technology community in Washington, D.C. region. Prior to that, Penny served as Business Director at the Telecommunication Development Fund. In that role, she created resources to provide technical and management support to help companies achieve their capital financing objectives. Penny also has served in a number of regional business organizations, as well as the Kaufman Foundation Women Brain Trust, the SBIR STTR Advisory Committee of the National Science Foundation, the Board of Directors for the National Association of Seed and Venture Funds, the Women iTech Coalition, the Advisory Board for the D.C. Minority Business Enterprise Center, the Board for Fairfax Pets on Wheels, and the Johns Hopkins Advisory Council Program in Engineering and Applied Sciences. She has a BA from Agnes Scott College and an MA from University of New Mexico. She also served as an advisor on the transition team for the Obama administration. Thank you very much, Penny, for agreeing to conduct this webinar. And we now would like to conduct a poll. Okay, Penny, the floor is yours.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were somebody else was going to be conducting the poll to see who's online. It's my pleasure to work with you today because there's an awful lot going on with Small Business Administration, and we're particularly pleased about our partnership with IEEE, an association many of my colleagues have been members of, particularly when we're at the Telecommunications Venture Fund. Because they were very strong in the electronics and telecom technologies. But today we're just talking really about the overview of the Small Business Administration. Many people don't realize, because the word small is in the title, how much this agency actually accomplishes and does. So we're going to go over very quickly kind of the highlights of what we do, and then I think this will begin a series of meetings where we can talk about, drill down into particular areas of the agency and what we do. We're a small agency of staff, but we have leveraged what we do have into a large number of resources throughout the country. We're located in every state and territory of the U.S. so that people do not have to go far to access SBA. Of course, we're obviously accessed online, but we'll talk about that as we go through. We'll talk a bit about what we do and particularly our training network of 12,000, up to 14,000 volunteers and professionals. Fortunately, since 1953, Small Business Administration has been reaching out to millions and millions of entrepreneurs and working both with the lenders who provide capital, with the early seed and early stage investors who provide capital, and with the entrepreneurs themselves. So it's been a process. What we're talking about today will be some of our best practices which have evolved over 60 years of trial and error. We've evolved into some fairly effective things. And I guess the question that we were looking at today is a little bit of if you already have a business, you need assistance in helping to grow and expand that business, and how you might leverage SBA resources to improve and move ahead. If you are starting a business, you may want to get more advice of a different nature. And that's why, through our Office of Entrepreneurial Development, we've established a network of trained advisors to work with people at every level of the business opportunity or where they're starting.
Penny,
Yeah.
we're having a problem with the slides.
Oh, they're not showing?
They're showing, but they're they're on top of each other. There isn't a single slide per view.
Oh.
Let us adjust that while the first few slides, I think Penny can present verbally, and give us a second to try to change the view on this.
All right. Yeah, sorry, we were having assistants trying to get online, so maybe we need to try again. We look at developing a company through the resources across the U.S. We have an organization called SCORE. Perhaps many of the people who are online or listening today are familiar with SCORE. It's one of the earliest partnerships that we have to provide a volunteer network of technical and management people who train themselves. It started out formerly retired executives. Now we're finding that there are a lot more active current employed executives who are getting involved with SCORE, because they can do that online, via telephone, through email, and reach companies and a lot of times become mentors to companies. We also have throughout the U.S. a system of small business development centers. Approaching 900 of those centers tend to be based around academic institutions, but they can be based in state economic development offices, or even a partner in our district offices. We do have 68 small business administration district offices throughout the country. Our larger states will have more than one district office: California, Texas, New York. But every state has at least one district office. And for people who are listening today, that's usually the first point of contact for someone looking at business, encountering a problem, or just curious about what the SBA does. Within our Small Business Development Network, our SCORE, we also have women's business centers. They tend to focus a little bit more on early people coming into business who have not yet formed companies. They tend to be socially and economically disadvantaged. They do a lot of work with our most recent immigrant populations who are starting businesses in record numbers. Online, we have a virtual system, our Small Business Training Network, SBTN. We have approximately 28 to 30 courses at any one time. Many of those are already in Spanish. Some of them very basic, how to do a business plan. Others go into much more complex issues on financing, SBIR. Those online anytime, and in fact, we find most of the use of our courses tend to be between midnight and 6 a.m. when entrepreneurs finally have a few minutes to do something besides worry about their companies. So it's a very active online. It's usually about 30 to 45-minute course, and many of them
Penny, I'm going to mute all the lines, and I need you to unmute your line in just a couple of seconds. Okay.
This is the SBA. Just want to make sure we're audible again so Penny can pick it back up. Penny's going to pick it back up. I think everybody else is on mute just to kill some of the background noise, and Penny will again round out our resource partner network before going into her next slide.
Are the slides picked up, do you know?
Yes.
Are you back with the slides? Okay. All right. So that I've kind of outlined our resource network as it is, but there are many options for funding a business. Financing options are as varied as the business are. Sometimes to launch a business, entrepreneurs that look at a strategy, it's very much dependent on the strategy of the entrepreneur and where they want to go. But finance assistance is available for growing your business, starting your business, if you're ready to export, even in times of natural disaster. SBA is there to help companies and small businesses get back on their feet and get back to work. Our primary thing has been debt, but we do have other options. For instance, loans can be used for working capital or to build inventory. We have, that's basically our 7A. Our 504 loans tend to be for land, building, capital improvements to small companies. When doing government contracts, small businesses are able to obtain surety bonds from the through SBA, and actually under the stimulus, that level was raised to 10 million, which has helped a lot of our companies get back on their feet in 2009, 2010. Our venture capital work is under our Small Business Investment Company program, and is very active. Is now investment and innovation, which I'll speak of in a little while. Export assistance, we can do some funding for export assistance loans, working capital, to help small businesses get into the international market, which is happening much more frequently. And of course, during natural disasters, we have a special office who does nothing but help people get back on their feet. And they're extremely well organized and work very closely with the local communities. So when looking at loans, it's pretty standard what most people would expect. You have to have a good legal and financial record. We tend to check those. And these are done by the banks. We don't do direct lending through SBA, but we have delegated the authority to lend to our banking partners as they have become more experienced and have been doing more and more SBA loans. So the slide will give you some of the points that any banker would look for. During the recovery, we realized that there has been some tightening of these standards. So we always encourage people not only to make sure that they have well documented their history and their background, but that they work with a banker or one of our resource providers to make sure that their loan applications are done properly. That seems to be a bigger problem. 7A loan program has been kind of the standard loan that most people are aware of. It's creatively named after the piece of legislation, but it's known as 7A and has been the biggest financer of small businesses for many, many years. There's some variations, different types of 7A loans, but that's something we could drill down on another time. Right now, maximum loan is $2 million. The President has asked to raise that number to $5 million to allow more companies access. That is currently working its way through Congress. And under the stimulus here, we talk about 75% loan guarantee. One of the features of the Recovery Act that is currently in effect, and we're hoping to extend to the end of the calendar year, not just the fiscal year, is to keep that loan guarantee at 90% to encourage more banks to make those loans. At the same time, under the Recovery Act, we've also waived fees for the borrowers to make it a little easier for them to get the money. Proceeds, these are obviously things that any entrepreneur would apply loan, debt capital for, working capital, inventory, 7A, expansion, renovation. So this is start and growth capital. Maturities up to 25 years for real estate. They're looking at this. We're coming up to looking at some refinancing options that may be coming up through the hill. But there are terms of 5 to 10 years for working capital. The interest rates and fees, they will vary. We have different programs under our 7A or traditional one, as I mentioned. The 75% guarantee, which was fairly standard, has been raised under the Recovery Act, but that will expire either one, when the money runs out, or two, when the end of the year. That has already expired. It created great demand, but on our website it goes into great detail about the requirements of each of these different loans. There's Patriot Express for veterans. There's Community Express, which focuses more on geographic areas and more needy, low-income to moderate-income areas. Frequently, those are around, based around what we call hub zones, and that's handled. It's a company can get designated to function in a hub zone and get some advantages that way. Loan amounts are right now about $250,000 max. SBA Express, this is done quickly through our banks. Again, this $350,000 maximum loan limit, we have asked Congress to raise that to $1 million under the recovery to help companies who have, through no fault of their own, have had their lines of credit pulled or reduced significantly. SBA Express is done through a bank using entirely their own paper, so that can be done very quickly. And we're waiting to hear whether we can raise the limits on that to help some companies, especially for revolving lines of credit and working capital. So again, it will vary with the loan, the guarantee, and the loan limit term will depend on the loan type. Patriot Express, these are many of the things that you can do with the money when the loan is secured, and that is something that the individual business needs to work with their banker. We always suggest that companies and entrepreneurs work with their bankers long before they need the capital. You want to work with your bankers so that when you actually need the money, it's much more of a partnership, and they know your business, you know your banker, and these are all discussions that you should be having. Patriot Express, again, this is one that is focused on military, people with military service, and has been very active. It covers the range of service members, but it also covers spouses of any of those people. Many times they are affected by a person's calling up to deployment or getting called to duty. So the spouses are eligible, but also widows or widowers who have been affected by a death or service-disabled disability that really impacts the business. So these are all targeted towards our military and the military family. It's a greater than just the members who serve themselves. This is one that we're looking at currently. It's 85% guarantee and up to $150,000. So those are the current terms. We're looking to see if we can make that even more accessible to our returning military, since that's quite a number these days. Cap line loans, again, this is a short-term, cyclical capital. You may need it for a particular rollout of a product or something that's a recurring annual kind of revolving credit. So again, this will vary a bit on the fees and the guarantees with the loans. Microloans are really very early companies, people who are starting. These are actually done instead of banks. They're handled through intermediaries who are licensed by the SBA, And the requirement with micro-lending is that the company must receive technical assistance with their loans. So these tend to be people who are just starting, maybe a home-based business. Frequently there have been women or economically disadvantaged people who have taken advantage of these. But many times it's a company that needs a very small amount of capital. They can go up to $35,000. Again, the President has asked that we raise this limit to $50,000 per company. And that, again, is being looked at. Seems to be very popular. It's all over the country. This was actually a concept that came from the developing world and came to the U.S. from internationally. It's still used very, very extensively internationally. Our 504 loans, these are, again, these tend to be fixed assets, capital improvements, and is up to, guarantees up to 50%. I think that's also being discussed whether that can be raised a bit. We're looking at the 504s, being able to refinance some of the existing 504s under the stimulus to prevent any impact on our real estate that some small businesses may work with or hold in their own. The maturity on those is a lot longer than a typical 7A. That can go to 10 to 20 years on maturity on those. That's a significant difference between a 504 and the 7A. But again, we really advise that people either talk with their counselors at a small business development center or our SCORE counselors to figure out which of these is the best tool for them. International trade, again, this is a growing area for our small businesses. Many small businesses don't think that they're eligible or they're ready for global trade. Surprisingly, they are. And we have some centers that we call them UZAGs, U.S. Export Assistance Centers, that specialize in working with our small businesses who are ready to do some exporting. And they can do everything from the counseling to actually arranging working capital. SBA works with these up to a point. We have arrangements with some of our federal partners, the Export-Import Bank, and Commerce Department, so that SBA can provide some of the early capital, but our partners will follow through to stay with these companies. So it's a good example of intergovernmental collaboration to make sure that the entrepreneur succeeds, which is very helpful. Again, the loans will have a guarantee of 75% up to 150,000, 85% guarantee under 150,000. And these are really used for various. This money can be used for various things, from fixed assets to refinancing to export capital. And again, there's some variations on how this works, and these are all points of discussion. In some of our future ones, especially if we focus on finance, then we can get into much more detail on the export working capital and the international trade loans. This is for exports, short-term. This is short-term cash. SBICs, which may be of interest here because our SBICs really operate, we license SBICs to operate as equity investors, and they tend to be the ones who are looking at the higher technologies, the high growth, high potential companies that function a little bit more on the venture capital model as opposed to the debt. So it's our Small Business Investment Program. I know that's being revitalized, and those are licensing. Our director of that office has now made a commitment to shorten that licensing process by a huge amount, and is very, very pleased that that's happening more quickly. We'll get more investors out in the field. Surety bonds, again, this helps to get our companies who are working with federal contracts to get the bonding that they need to get larger contracts. And again, I think we may want to look at a whole discussion of the contracting opportunities, because the federal government is certainly the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. So this is a huge opportunity for small businesses, and there are some things that we try to do to give them an advantage, to include requiring we have a goal of 23% of all this federal contracting go to small businesses, and we spend a lot of time trying to reach that goal. We are under the stimulus. In previous years, we haven't been quite so good at meeting that goal, so we're working hard on that. Many of you may be already familiar with the SBAR, Small Business Innovation Research Program, one of the most effective programs, I think, anywhere in government. It's really small business getting to do R&D, and they're doing some very, very fascinating work. There are currently 11 agencies who actually do the grants. We do the policy side of that. We don't actually do grants from SBA, but we oversee the 11 agencies, and each of the 11 agencies will have their own criteria, their own management of that program. Some of the agencies, DOD, Agriculture, may actually purchase some of the products coming from the SBAR. National Science Foundation and Energy may simply facilitate the research and expect commercialization. So the best way to find out is really to be in touch with the agency where you may want to do that. The TTR, Small Business Technology Transfer Program, requirements there is these agencies work with universities and trying to get the phenomenal research that's going on all over the world under the auspices of our universities into the commercial markets. So this is an attempt to really get that technology out where practitioners can bring it to the market. I mentioned federal contracting before. The HUBZone, these are geographic determinations based on economic levels in certain areas. They will be designated as HUBZones. You need to be self-certified, but our Office of Government Contracting will check that you're eligible. The company has to be based in this geographic area, and they also need to hire 35% of their workforce must live in that area. So we can map this out, but a company that's competing in the HUBZone has a lot of preference in getting contracts because these are very challenged areas. They're designated. I'm trying to think how the designation is. Based on commerce, data from commerce, and then they stand for historically underutilized business zones. In fact, in Washington, D.C., you can have one side of the street is a HUBZone, the other side is not. You really need to track these. Indian country, where we do have for challenge, tend to be more rural, tend to be more underdeveloped. Almost all of the Indian areas are qualified as HUBZones. They tend to be inner cities or rural, but we can check, and you certainly want to check with somebody in your local SBA office to find out exactly where the HUBZones are. They can do that online. You can do it through your district office because those are designated. 8A has been a program, many people may have already heard of this. It's for women or disadvantaged people, even service-disabled veterans, who go through a qualification process, and they are then given an advantage in competing for government contracts. This is done for a period of years, up to a maximum of 9 years, which allows the business to grow and build in its expertise so that it can then graduate from the program and compete with some of the other companies. A lot of our 8A companies have found it to their advantage to partner with other primes. So it's one that's well run. Again, you can go online. The requirements and so forth are all listed for the 8A program. Even the material, the format, the applications, all of that is available online. Finally, we have our disaster recovery program. This is the only time that SBA will actually do loans for home owners. And the theory being that it's hard to run a business if you don't have a place to live. And this was particularly important during the hurricanes. For all the bad news we had in late 2008 and all of 2009, one of the best things that happened to us was that we didn't have any hurricanes, minimal tornado, so our disaster office has been blessedly quiet because they are ready to move in anytime, anywhere, and they're on the ground within hours of a disaster. Must be physical disaster, loans up to $1.5 million. In fact, many years ago, it was our Office of Disaster Assistance that pioneered the use of laptops, where people would go directly into the field with laptops, and really made a huge difference in how quickly applications could be done. There's special considerations for economic injury and military loans. But again, our Office of Disaster Assistance has a lot of this. Then we do have another office associated with SBA, Office of Advocacy, which is really considered the voice of small business. And these have focused on looking at a lot of the research and bringing us the data we need to address some of the issues. Advocacy also has looked at a lot of the regulatory impacts of other agencies on small business. And they can be accessed online. Questions can be raised. Their resources, their research can be downloaded very quickly. It's very easy to do. We also have an office of the Ombudsman, which I don't think we have a slide on, who does a lot of almost town hall meeting type groups across the country. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I wasn't even looking at the right part of the slide. The Ombudsman does town hall meetings, wants to make a point of meeting with focus groups, people all over the country, to get their input on any of the issues that they feel are affecting them through government. As long as they're a small business, it doesn't matter. All the other agencies are queried and expected to respond to our ombudsman if it's an issue with the FCC, if it's an issue with the Department of Agriculture. The ombudsman from SBA has the authority to go in and speak on behalf of small business. So we're really trying to get outlets for people, whether they're in business, want to start a business, or want to grow a business. We try to be that voice there. We have a very robust website. They're currently always revising it, always finding more effective ways of communicating the material. Very simple, sba.gov, and we also have business.gov, and that tends more to, the business.gov encompasses a broader beyond SBA. Our website tends to focus on our own internal offices and what we're doing day to day. Now that is a very, very, very quick overview of of SBA. Again, get your questions and hope to have several more of these meetings where we can drill down and get you much more detail, but focus on one area and not try to cover the whole gamut. So I guess we're open for questions.
Actually, Penny, before we do the questions, well, I know folks have a point that they want to get some additional information on. I think the IEEE USA team is going to launch another poll for the participants to answer just a couple quick questions online before they ask you some additional information about SBA. So folks should view online and see the poll that's now live in front of you.
Peggy, this is Morrow. I have a question that was asked earlier. What can we give our members in the way of information? For instance, can we distribute the presentation, or is there a web page or a document they can go to that would give them kind of a central view of all the things you've talked about?
Mara, thanks for the question. This is Jack Bianco. Actually, to touch upon that quickly, and then Penny can add, is that there's a series of resources, and one of the reasons we're actually revamping some of our website is because there's such a rich range of materials depending on what somebody's particular interest is. If they're just getting into small business, we want to make sure they have that early information about writing the business plan, the key things they need to know about getting initial financing, how to set up their business as a legal structure, along the business life cycle, all the way to folks that have been running for a business for a number of years and are looking at some more advanced topic, including succession planning. I know we're going to provide a sort of short guide to the IEEE team that can be distributed to folks that are on the call and folks that weren't able to participate, both after this webinar and the additional webinars that we're going to work on, some of which will be designed based on, we saw some of the poll statistics popping up, what are some of the keen interests for the members already. So that's going to help us design those future webinars as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of slides, so what we'll do is put something out, share with the team, and for distribution, shorten it a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that's great. One question that has come up to the committee a lot of times is basically technology startups are somewhat different from some of the other groups or other entrepreneurs that the SBA deals with, in that technology startups generally don't really have real property. They have intellectual property, such as patents and other things, but no machinery, no buildings, no land. What can our members do that want to start a business to facilitate evaluation of that by the banks or by the SBA? Because, again, it's easy to price some land or a building or the machinery, but it's not always easy to practice to evaluate a patent.
That is a very complicated question, because a lot of times the only asset is your intellectual property, which we hope is patented internationally too.
Right.
Yeah, we have some information online about making sure this is done, and the importance of covering your patents. But a lot of this falls into our SBIC partner licensed program, where many of the companies that are applying for seed or early stage capital or venture capital, their only asset is intellectual property. And more of our SBIC people, because they are trained management teams, are used to dealing with that. One of the first questions they will ask is about patents. A lot of times assistance can be had through in our TTR program. The university technology transfer offices will work with developers of patents of the technology to make sure that it's covered and valued. And then many of our some of the labs, federal labs and so forth, also have programs to help to make sure that it's the entrepreneur's property and he or she retains the rights to use that property. So there are many ways. Online has some very basic information, but as they mature and go to, particularly through our SBIC, our investment program, and then through the STTR.
Yeah. Just to add to that, a number of our resource partners, the small business development centers, including their special focus, small business technology development centers, really have some experienced folks working on particular issues to technology companies. SCORE has some active and retired technology founders who are very versed on the intellectual property side, the finance. Some of the finance is unique to tech firms. And we also collaborate, as Penny highlighted before, on different issues, including this one, with organizations like Commerce or the PTO, So we may at times direct folks to their websites because they have, sort of a library, either a legal library or some other guidance that they have on the particulars of that. So a lot of resources out there, and that's why we want to make sure your folks and other organizations that focus on technology especially are directed to those resources.
In fact, it would be helpful to hear some of concerns from your members, because we are continually having training programs with our lending community, with our other finance partners, and the more we can educate them about the challenges that technology-based companies face, the better the relationship is. So we could use feedback on what some of the issues are that we should be bringing up in front of the financial community.
Yeah, this is Mauro again. We think that's probably a very important part of our alliance, because we have the technologists and we have the technical people that can, and some that are volunteers that can help identify some of the areas where evaluation of the value of a patent or maybe a difficult task. One other question was the small business investment companies, which are basically, I guess, nonprofits that manage or handle the funds. How do one find those? Is there a list or?
There's a list, again, on our website. I guess on the opening page of the website, there's a little block on the left side that says SBA programs, and you can just scroll down.
Okay.
And SBICs, you'll click on there. We'll give a list. Now, SBICs function much like a traditional venture capital firm.
Mm-hmm.
So they are for profit, or their goal is to make a return on their investment.
Okay.
So now many of their investors, the strength that they bring to a lot of our technology people is that their limited partners may be some of the big banks or some of the Cisco or some of these companies who are investing, or universities actually put a lot of their endowment fund money in for it. They're trying to gain on their investments. What they can then do is, through their limited partners who supply the money, they also can introduce the companies to a broader network. So it's a very interesting, much more the traditional venture capital model.
Okay, and what about the microloans? I really was, I got confused in my questions here. The microloans, which some of our members, they're trying to demonstrate what their invention might do, sort of proof of performance or validating their technology. How does one find the list of the organizations that manage the microloans?
I think the easiest way there's a very long website, or on the opening page of the SBA website, in the search top right corner, there's a little search box, and just type in micro-lending or microloan intermediaries.
Oh, okay.
It will come up. The search will bring it up. Yeah, the actual link is a little long to remember, so it's sba.gov and just search microloan intermediary. But those are things. If those are of interest, we can always forward information to you. That's not a problem. We can pull these together.
Great. Can you see the question that are written up so I don't have to read them? There's other questions coming up.
Yeah, this is Jack. Let me highlight a couple questions that are posed from the members, and then we're going to wrap up very quickly. But Penny, one question is, how is it, or how easy is it to work with a local SBA office in all practicality? Maybe to flesh it out, do you call the office and you set up an appointment, or do SBA district offices take walk-ins or workshops? How does that look if you're in a local area and you want to connect with your local SBA office? I
think all of those are above. It depends. If you're in the city where the office is located, it's probably a little easier if you just call up and see if you can drop by. Most of our district offices will have on their website events where they may have an event, how to write your business plan, or they may have a SCORE counselor sitting in the district office meeting those. I would call and just find out what's the best way in your particular office to make that initial contact. let them know what you're looking for. I'm interested in, I live in Southern California, and I'm looking at government contracting. That will help them direct you to the right person immediately rather than trying to puzzle it out. Dropping in oftentimes doesn't work because our people, they have business development specialists. They're out and about in the community so much. It's probably better to let them know, find out when's a good time to come, or to look at one of the courses that they have. You can go online and make contact with the SCORE people, find somebody to interact with and see do they want to talk on the phone, do they want to talk online, do they want to meet in person. Our small business development centers are very similar. Probably just give them a call. Again, all of these centers are on our website or listed state by state that you can find them. Just call and find out what that particular office prefers.
Okay. And there are additional questions about patent issue and valuation, but I think, as you mentioned, that would be a separate webinar we'll set up with that team so folks can get more in-depth knowledge on that. But one question that comes up frequently, and I think we see this in other webinars or calls, Penny, is that quite often folks want to know about general grants to start a business, whether they're seeing that on television or maybe something a little more sophisticated like SBIR. So what's both the short answer, whether the SBA and the federal government, whether it's part of stimulus, is providing just grants, and are they hidden to start your business, or what is the sort of real deal with grants to start a business?
Actually, SBA does not do grants to individual companies or individual people to start or grow a business. What we do is we make sure that SBIC, our program, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, those are done through other agencies. For instance, if you apply to NASA to do a coating on the next lunar lander, then that's the grant. If it's approved, reviewed by peers and approved, then the grant comes through NASA. It's not SBA. But we don't do direct loans to direct grants, but we do other financing.
Great.
Our resource partners, our SBDCs, our small business development centers, and our women's business centers do operate under grants, but those are special entities, not individual businesses.
So if folks wanted a central portal for grant information, if for some other reason, would the best location be grants.gov?
Grants.gov is a huge resource.
For all the agencies?
For all the agencies.
Right. Okay.
Now, there may be some grants, through the Rural Telecom Association for a grant to wire your children's school in a rural area or something like that. So grants.gov is really the best place to find that information.
Super. Well, there are a couple other questions, but I think, again, we're going to direct those to the future webinars that we'll be jointly hosting with the IEEE USA team. So, Penny, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and doing this overview of the SBA for the participants this afternoon.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I look forward to helping work with the additional topics where we get into much more detail and hear more questions. Thank you all.
Yeah, from the IEEE, we sure thank you. This was great. And members or participants, keep an eye out for the emails or the IEEE web, the Entrepreneur Activities web for other webinars. This is just the beginning of a series. Thank you very much for participating.
Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Thanks.